So far for the month of July, the S&P 500 is showing a gain of 2.84%. This week, we saw the S&P 500 put in a new all-time high again and closed the week with a gain of 0.87% or 48 points for the week. But it was unable to close the week with a new all-time closing high. The Nasdaq 100 also made a new all-time high this week, but it also failed to close with a new all-time closing high. In addition, it ended the week with a 0.3% loss, or a loss of 60 points. The Nasdaq Composite did close the week with a 0.25% gain. It gained 45 points for the week. From these price action, you might think this could be the top, and you could be right. But let's see what the market is telling us. We'll look at the market internals, the 11th sector in the S&P 500, and few other key sectors to see where the strengths and the weaknesses are. Today we saw the Dow Jones Industrial, the New York Stock Exchange Composite, and the S&P 500 made a new all-time high, and the Russell 2000 made a new 52-week high. The Dow Jones Transportation and the Nasdaq did not make a new high. On a closing basis, only the New York Stock Exchange Composite closed with a new all-time closing high, and the Russell 2000 closed with a new 52-week closing high. Although the Dow Jones Industrial made a new all-time high, it did not close with a new closing high, same as the S&P 500. While the S&P 500 made a new all-time high, the VIX remained in the low teen level and ended the week at 12.46, and the put-call ratio is at 0.63. These sentiment indicators are telling us the market participants are risk on and have no fear. The New York Stock Exchange up-down volume ratio and the daily advance and decline are positive, and they are telling us there were broad market participation in the last 3 trading sessions of the week. In addition, the number of stocks made new 52-week high expanded to greater than 200, while the number of stocks made 52-week low has contracted to single digit. An accumulative AD line put in a higher high while the S&P 500 put in a lower closing high. This created a positive divergence between the AD line and the S&P 500, and this indicates we could see a higher closing high from the S&P 500 in the near future. In the Nasdaq market, the up-down volume ratio and the daily advance and decline are also positive, while the index pulled back from its recent all-time high. The new high, new low in the Nasdaq market also show an expansion on the number of stocks made new 52-week high. On Thursday, while the index was down, there were 279 stocks made new 52-week high, and the number of stocks made new 52-week low was below 100. From this internal, it tells us other stocks other than the FANG stock are starting to participate on pushing this index higher. An accumulative AD line confirms the broad market participation as it accelerated higher, while the Nasdaq 100 closed below its recent all-time closing high. Now let's run through the 11th sector in the S&P 500 and some major sectors and see which sector will provide the strength for the market to move higher. XLK, the technology sector, broke out from the price channel and came back in. We could see more pullback from the technology sector in the coming week. XLV, the healthcare sector, broke out to all-time high, and we could see higher prices from this sector as this sector is recession-proof. XLY, the consumer discretionary, is still strong. We could see some additional upside. XLF, the financial, could see some pullback as earnings start to come in from the banks in the coming week. In XLC, the communication sector, after breaking out to a new high and reached the top of the channel, we could see a pullback to the 84 area. XLI, the industrial, looks like you want to make a new high, so we'll be watching for the top of the channel. XLP, the consumer stable, look for a breakout from this trend line. XLE, the energy sector, put in a higher low. Watch for a breakout from the trend line to put in a higher high to break the recent downtrend. And the XLRE, the real estate, it could encounter resistance near the 40.5 level. XLB, the material sector, is bumping up against resistance. We'll watch for pullback from the current resistance. XLU, the utility, is making a run to test the prior high. Now, looking at the semiconductor sector, the SMA, we could see a pullback to this near-term trend line. USO, the oil, we could see a push up to the 84 area. And finally, the long-term bond, the TLT, is bumping up against this trendline resistance. Watch for a breakout from this resistance and move up to the 95 area. So with the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial, and the NASDAQ failed to close with a new closing high. And with many sectors getting near the potential resistance level, one would think this might be the beginning of a long overdue correction. But from the market internal, they are telling us the market is bottoming out on the upside. And the positive divergence between the New York Stock Exchange cumulative AD line and the S&P 500 is telling us to expect a higher high from the S&P 500. In addition, we are seeing these sectors are gathering strength. The healthcare, industrial, consumer stable, energy, utilities, oil, and the long-term bonds. These are all defensive type of sector that could strive in a recessionary environment. So we could see a move by these sectors to push the S&P 500 to another new all-time closing high. Many stocks are overextended on the upside, and we could see some pullback before we see another push to the upside. And maybe then we'll see the high for this cycle. But for now, the market is telling us there is still another all-time high for the S&P 500. Now we know what the market is telling us. Let's take a look at what we should be expecting for the coming week and see how we could prepare for that. Let's start looking at the ES, the E mini S&P 500 on this volume profile chart. We see there's a couple of these high volume area here. So one is here and then the other one is down here. So if we are expecting some sort of a pullback, the first area that I will be paying attention to would be down in this high volume area between 56.50 and 56.25 area. And see would it be able to hold this high volume area and get a bounce off of it and then come up to the all-time high and take out the all-time high and put in another new all-time high. Now, if it's unable to hold this high volume area for support, then I expect the price to break through this low volume area and then come down to this next high volume area here and watch for this HVN. This HVN is somewhere around between 55.30, 55.32. So we want to see what the price come down here and get a support and then push it back up. So those are the two areas that I'd be looking for the coming week in terms of potential acceptance. And if we take a look at the market profile for the ES, we see that we have a couple of these poor low down here that still need to be resolved, and also the naked POC. So on Friday, basically, settle down here below the POC. So if we get a low pullback next week, then I'll be watching for this area here. And this is basically coincide with that balance area that we are talking about in the volume profile. And if it is unable to hold this and get a bounce after taking out this poor low, these poor low here, then we'll be looking for this thing to come down and start take out these right here. And this is the other balance area. So be coming down and resolve all these unfinished business before it come back up. And if we take a look at the daily chart, daily candlestick chart for the ES, and right now we're basically still looking at this channel here. And what I have here is basically a little bit of a major move, and I'm putting this symmetry move here. Some might call this a little bit of a bull flag, but in regardless, we basically are looking at a symmetry move. And if it's 100% symmetry move, let me move this down here so we can see this. And if we are doing this symmetry move here, and we're basically targeting this 5810.75, that's up here near the 5800. So basically that's what we are looking at in the potential upside because it is in a new high territory. And the best objective way for me to kind of get some sort of projection on where the next potential high will be, I'm using the Fibonacci extension and just kind of project this symmetry move 100%. Now also notice that we do have the upper range for the coming week is 57.35 and 57.23. Lower range is between 56.12 and 55.90. So if we are to look for the potential pullback, then we are looking for a pullback to come into the lower range and then see what it bounce. And if it doesn't bounce, then we're basically looking for this thing to come down here. Remember that the volume profile earlier that we looked at, and this is the high volume node that we're going to be looking for to see would it be able to get a bounce back inside of this weekly expected move range here. Now, if the market decide, the ES decide to push through this upper range, then we'd be looking at this, this major move or this symmetry move in play, this 58.10 here. So that basically what I'm looking for, and then eventually try to come up and tag this channel, and that is probably where we most likely see the high for this cycle and then get a correction back down. So that's basically what I'm looking at for the ES for the coming week. And looking at the SPY, pretty much the same thing as the ES. We're basically looking at this symmetry move here. And this right here will be projected up at 575.41. Now there are the ranges here for the coming week. The upper range is between 567.30 and 565.70. And the lower range is between 554.30 and 552.70. So those are the ranges that we're looking at. And if we are getting a little bit of a pullback, then once again, I'm looking for it to pull back to this lower range and possibly into this low volume zone here and see would it get rejected and then push it back up to this upper range here. Now, if it doesn't come down and hold this low volume zone, get rejected and continue to move down, then once again, we're basically looking at this high volume node here, right? And that would be somewhere around 542 area, and see would it be able to get a bounce and push us back inside of the weekly range. Now, if it moves above this upper range here, then we're basically looking at this symmetry move, this symmetry move at 575 as the target that would be in play for the coming week. And that would again move outside of the weekly range. So that's basically the SPY for the coming week. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found the video to be informative. You can see more contents from me on my Substack page at smtraderca.substack.com. Go ahead and sign up for a free subscription and browse around. If you like what you see, then support my work and become a paid subscriber to get access to all of my content in my Substack newsletter. And don't forget to give this video a like to help promote this on YouTube. And if you are new to this channel, hit the subscribe. And thanks again for watching, and hope to see you in my next video.